Welcome to the deep dive. If you're joining us today, you're probably someone who likes to, get past all the surface noise and figure out how things actually work.
Right, getting into the real mechanics of it.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is to do exactly that, but with a stack of sources that, well, they might actually surprise you a bit.
Oh, they definitely will.
Yeah, because today we are looking at excerpts from the Bible, specifically the ancient text of Song of Solomon, chapter 1.
Right.
And we're pairing that biblical text with a modern analytical breakdown of its real-world psychological applications.
Which is such an interesting combination because usually, when people encounter a text that's thousands of years old, there's this immediate expectation of distance.
Oh, for sure. Like a history lesson.
Yeah, we tend to treat it like an artifact under museum glass. You see the weathered parchment, you read a little placard that says ancient romantic poetry, you nod respectfully, and then you just kind of move on.
Right, you don't actually engage with it.
Exactly. We just assume that people living millennia ago couldn't possibly understand the psychological complexities of modern relationships.
But that museum glass completely shatters the second you actually read the opening lines of this text.
It really does.
Because society loves to dismiss this specific chapter as just, archaic romance or flowery poetry from a bygone era.
Just nice wedding verses, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But our sources reveal something entirely different. We are looking at a gritty, aggressive, and honestly highly relevant masterclass on how love, personal identity, and boundaries operate under immense pressure.
Yeah, when you strip away the ancient agrarian setting, the vineyards and all that, and look at the underlying mechanics, it functions as this incredible psychological mirror. The authors of our application source point out that the text introduces three core human tensions right out of the gate.
Okay, what are they?
So you have the battle between desire and restraint, the friction between insecurity and affirmation, and then the conflict between maintaining authenticity versus managing appearances.
That sounds like a modern therapy session. So let's jump straight into the deep end, because the opening of this text does not tiptoe around human emotion at all.
No, it really doesn't.
The bride opens the chapter with this intensely raw statement. She literally says, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine."
It's super direct.
Right. She goes on to describe the physical scent of him, the emotional weight of his name. It is heavy. It's overwhelmingly physical.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredibly easy for a modern reader to look at that, categorize it as just pure romance, and completely miss that first tension you mentioned, desire versus restraint.
Well, the language is so sensory that it easily masks the psychological framework beneath it. But what's fascinating here is that the biblical text refuses to deny human desire.
Which is surprising to a lot of people.
Very. In many ancient traditions, and honestly, even modern ones, having a strong physical or emotional longing is framed as a moral failing. Like it's a liability that just needs to be crushed.
Just suppress it entirely.
Right. But the application source notes that the text takes the complete opposite approach. It doesn't shame the longing. Instead, it frames that raw desire within strict intentionality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the whole idea of managing desire is where a lot of people get tripped up. We often hear that desire is dangerous. But looking at these sources, I'm thinking about it more like a highly engineered rocket engine.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Because thrust by itself is not inherently bad. If you strap a massive engine to a spacecraft, that power is what breaks you out of gravity.
Exactly.
But without a highly calibrated guidance system, that exact same thrust will just send the craft crashing violently into the ground.
Yeah.
So is the text basically telling us to shut off the engine to keep from crashing?
Not at all. It is telling us to build a better guidance system.
Okay.
The modern analytical breakdown of this text offers this brilliant paradigm shift. It argues that we do not actually have a desire problem in our lives. We have a targeting problem.
The targeting problem. Interesting.
Yeah. We treat attraction like it's some rare mystical event that we have to blindly follow whenever it happens. But attraction isn't rare. It's a biological and psychological constant.
Right. It happens all the time.
What is rare is discernment.
Let me push back on that a little bit, though, because isn't the nature of intense passion inherently blinding?
Well,
Like when you're caught up in that overwhelming feeling, that whole love better than wine stage, doesn't the guidance system just naturally go offline?
That is the cultural myth we've accepted, but the text rejects it entirely. The application source argues that allowing passion to override your discernment is a choice. It's not an inevitability.
Oh, wow. So you have agency in it.
Exactly. Who you direct your desire toward will ultimately shape the architecture of your entire life, your daily habits, your financial stability, your emotional baseline.
That is so true.
And the text opens with intense longing, right? But the bride is fiercely specific about who gets access to that longing. She has programmed the coordinates before she ignites the engine. Thrust without a vector is just an explosion.
Thrust without a vector is an explosion. That is a great way to put it. But, if having that guidance system, that targeting mechanism, is so crucial to not destroying our lives, why do so many of us consistently get it wrong?
It's a good question.
Because we frequently point our strongest desires at the absolute most toxic people or the worst possible situations.
Right, and the sources suggest a highly practical reason for this. We don't necessarily make bad choices because we are fundamentally broken.
Okay.
We make bad choices because our environments slowly drain our cognitive and emotional bandwidth until we just lose our sense of self.
We lose the baseline.
Exactly. We lose the baseline identity required to even calibrate that guidance system in the first place.
Which leads directly into this really startling admission from the bride. She explains exactly how that bandwidth gets drained.
Yeah, this part is fascinating.
She says, "My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own vineyard have I not kept."
That single line right there reveals the entire anatomy of burnout.
Really? Just from the vineyard thing?
Yes. This isn't just some throwaway detail about agricultural labor. It's a massive metaphor for misaligned environments and the slow erosion of the self.
So what does this all mean for us today? Because, I look at the phrase keeper of the vineyards, and I immediately see modern hustle culture.
Oh, 100%.
Like the person who manages everyone else's crises, the employee who takes on 3 extra projects, the family member holding all the emotional baggage together. Society rewards that.
We definitely do.
We give that person a badge of honor. But let me play devil's advocate here. Isn't sacrificing your own vineyard to help your family or your company, isn't that just part of being a responsible, mature adult? Like, isn't prioritizing your own vineyard kind of selfish?
Well, there is a massive mechanical difference between sacrificing from a place of surplus and systematically erasing your own identity.
Ah, okay. That's a huge distinction.
The application document unpacks this dire warning perfectly. The text is illustrating a scenario where you are highly productive and incredibly useful to everyone around you, but you are personally completely neglected.
Yeah.
The bride was forced to manage everyone else's assets because they were angry with her. She was operating out of a need to placate others, just to keep the peace.
Mine own vineyard have I not kept.
Bleh.
She didn't even have the energy left to tend to her own life.
Right. And when you give all your energy to external demands, like when every crisis, every email, every family drama gets your attention, but your own emotional growth gets zero bandwidth, that imbalance alters your psychology.
It changes how you think.
Completely.
Yeah.
You build all these external structures for other people, but you hollow yourself out in the process. You simply can't maintain a healthy relationship if you don't even have a solid self to bring to the table.
And this directly explains the next major tension in the text. Because when you hollow yourself out, your emotional immune system basically drops to zero. Exhaustion doesn't just make you tired. It makes you incredibly vulnerable to insecurity.
The causality there is undeniable. The bride was forced to work the vineyards out in the harsh elements, and because of that, she feels deeply exposed and judged for her physical appearance.
She states it so plainly, too. She says, "I am black, but comely. Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me."
We really need to pause and explain the historical mechanism here, because it's not about race in the modern sense at all.
Right, good point. It's about social class, isn't it?
Yes. In the ancient Near East, having sun-darkened skin was a direct socioeconomic marker of harsh manual labor. The wealthy elite, the royalty, they stayed indoors. They were sheltered behind the curtains of Solomon.
So she's standing there looking like someone who's been relentlessly worked to the bone.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, she's expressing a profound awareness of her own perceived deficit. She knows she does not fit the pristine, untouched aesthetic ideal of the environment she's entering.
She feels the heavy weight of that cultural judgment.
She really does.
But here's where it gets really interesting. She says, "Don't stare at me. The sun has scorched me." She fully admits that she doesn't look the part. But right before that, she drops this absolute anchor of a phrase. I am black, but comely.
Yes.
Comely meaning beautiful, attractive, possessing inherent value.
She names the insecurity, but crucially, she completely refuses to disqualify herself because of it.
And that completely rewrites how we're taught to handle self-doubt today. Because, modern self-help often tells us to stand in front of a mirror and recite affirmations until we pretend our flaws don't exist.
Right. It's almost like delusional confidence.
Exactly. But she's looking at reality. She's saying, my path hasn't been pristine. I've been overworked. The sun has scorched me. But my value remains entirely intact.
And the sources highlight a severe practical warning tied to this exact mindset. You have to handle your internal insecurity before it handles your external decisions.
That's a great way to say it.
If you don't settle the internal debate over your own worth, the psychological consequences are disastrous.
Because if you secretly believe your unkept vineyard makes you worthless, you're going to negotiate every single relationship from a deficit.
And when you negotiate from a deficit, you tolerate behavior you should immediately reject.
You settle.
You settle. You'll accept breadcrumbs because you genuinely believe a full meal isn't meant for someone like you. You'll constantly seek external validation to plug a psychological hole that can only be filled by internal acceptance.
Wow.
Unmanaged insecurity is actually the root cause of the targeting problem we discussed earlier, but the bride. She refuses to negotiate from the bottom.
Which leads to my absolute favorite part of this source material.
Yeah.
Because she's anchored her own worth, she absolutely refuses to play games. She demands highly specific clarity from her partner.
She has zero tolerance for ambiguity.
None. She calls him out directly. She says, tell me, O thou whom my soul loveth, where thou feedest, where thou makest thy flock to rest at noon. For why should I be as one that turneth aside by the flocks of thy companions?
It's brilliant.
Let me translate that into modern terms for you. She's basically saying, tell me exactly where you're going to be, because I am not about to wander around looking like a fool, guessing your intentions, and asking all your friends where you are.
Yeah, and this raises such an important question about our modern tolerance for confusion. The analytical source derives a hard rule from her demand here. Healthy connection does not thrive in ambiguity.
But we actually romanticize the ambiguity today.
We do.
Think about modern dating. We deal with ghosting, mixed signals, leaving people on read, and culture tells us that this mystery is just part of the chase. We sit around analyzing cryptic text messages with our friends, treating confusion like it's some essential ingredient for romance.
But the ancient text is screaming a warning against this. The application notes put it so bluntly. If you are constantly confused by someone's intentions, that confusion is your answer.
Oh, that's good. Confusion is the answer.
Chronic ambiguity is not romantic mystery. It is a lack of safety. Real connection brings direction, not anxiety. She is telling him, I value myself too much to chase unclear signals.
And what is incredibly revealing is how the bridegroom responds to this boundary.
Right.
Because he doesn't gaslight her. He doesn't call her needy or tell her she's overreacting. He meets the demand with overwhelming, specific affirmation.
He provides a masterclass in establishing emotional safety.
He says, I have compared thee, O my love, to a company of horses in Pharaoh's chariots. He talks about her cheeks being comely with rows of jewels, her neck with chains of gold. He says, behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes.
We really need to break down the architecture of that specific compliment, though, because comparing a woman to a company of horses in Pharaoh's chariots sounds completely bizarre to a modern listener.
Right, like, hey, babe, you remind me of a bunch of horses. Probably wouldn't go over well today.
No, probably not. But we have to look at the historical mechanics of that phrase. In the ancient world, Pharaoh's chariots were the absolute pinnacle of military supremacy, wealth, and power.
Okay.
They were basically the F-22 Raptors of antiquity. They represented unparalleled investment and unmatched value.
So it's not just a generic, hey, you look pretty today. It's highly calibrated value recognition.
Exactly. The analytical document stresses that words do not just flatter, they construct the emotional floor you stand on. True affirmation isn't an optional bonus in a relationship. It is the structural foundation. If a partner cannot clearly and consistently communicate your value, they literally lack the capacity to sustain a meaningful connection.
And it only works because it's rooted in truth, not just performative flattery.
Right.
He is looking at the exact same sun-darkened, exhausted woman who just admitted her insecurities, and he is publicly assigning royal immense worth to her. Her demand for clarity is met with a massive deposit of affirmation.
This beautiful exchange resolves the three massive tensions the chapter opened with. The raw thrust of desire is finally given intentional direction. The internal battle of insecurity is stabilized by foundational affirmation. And the messy authenticity of an unkept vineyard is met with a partner who refuses to judge her by superficial standards.
It is honestly staggering how much functional mechanical wisdom is packed into just a few ancient sentences.
It really is.
So let's pull all of this together and synthesize the practical takeaways from the sources we've explored today. First, you must be ruthlessly selective with your desire. Do not fire the engine without programming the coordinates. Passion without a guidance system is just chaos.
Second, you must handle your insecurity before it handles you. Acknowledge the areas where the sun has scorched you, but completely refuse to shrink your inherent worth. If you don't anchor your own value, you will spend your life negotiating from a weak position.
Third, never build external success at the cost of your internal identity. Stop being the highly productive keeper of everyone else's vineyard while your own emotional health burns to the ground. You cannot bring a hollowed-out version of yourself into a healthy relationship.
And finally, reject relationship confusion immediately. Stop chasing ambiguous signals and stop romanticizing mixed messages. Clarity is a structural requirement. Choose environments and people where your value is communicated clearly and consistently.
And all of this leads us to the ultimate truth hidden in these source documents. And this realization completely flips the script on how society views this text.
Yeah, the profound takeaway here is that Song of Solomon chapter 1 is not actually a manual about how to find love.
Wait, really?
No, it's a psychological blueprint for being the kind of person who doesn't lose themselves when love finally does show up. It's about constructing the boundaries, the self-worth, and the demand for clarity required to sustain a deep connection without sacrificing your own identity.
Being the kind of person who doesn't lose themselves. That is so powerful. And, looking at this as a biblical text, it adds a whole other layer to it.
How so?
Well, if God included this incredibly practical boundary-setting blueprint in Scripture, it tells us that He deeply cares about our relational health. It strengthens our trust in Him because we see that His design for desire isn't just about restriction, it's about protection.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge point.
Yeah, and knowing your inherent value because of who made you changes everything. When you trust God's affirmation of your worth, you don't have to desperately seek it from toxic situations. It stabilizes your entire life.
That makes perfect sense. It grounds the psychology in something eternal.
Exactly. So think back to that ancient text sitting quietly under the museum glass. It looks dusty, safe, and entirely disconnected from our modern lives. But when you break the glass and look at the actual mechanics of what it is demanding, guarding your own bandwidth, owning your worth despite your flaws, demanding absolute clarity, it is anything but safe. It's an aggressive challenge to how we live today.
It forces us to examine our own operating systems.
Which leaves us with a lingering thought for you. If a 3,000-year-old text recognized that human beings require absolute clarity, intentionality, and a rock-solid sense of self-worth before they can safely engage in love, it really makes you wonder about the tools we use today.
Yeah, it does.
Are our modern dating apps and our culture of constant ambiguous swiping actually evolving us toward better connections? Or are they systematically regressing us away from the psychological wisdom our ancestors and our Creator had already figured out? So we want to leave you with this question. How will you apply this information in your life?
Something to really think about.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.